here after Colorado's fourth preseason practice. We got a chance to talk to offense coordinator Pat Shurmur. Not willing to give any details in terms of their scheme specifics going into this preseason camp, but talked a lot about the quarterback competition. We got a couple other offensive players to talk about as well. I guess let's start with Pat Shurmur and just your overall takeaways from his meeting with us today.
Well, first off, he's always great when he talks to us, and went for about 15 minutes today, which was awesome. And he always gives us a lot of insight without giving us all the details, like you said. But you learn a lot, and he's clearly impressed by the quarterbacks. And I was asking about Ryan Staub. I mean, it's obviously a two-man competition, right, for the starting job. But I didn't even get to finish my question. He goes, don't forget about Ryan. He's been the number 2 quarterback here the last 2 years, and he talked about how much knowledge he has, things like that, and he feels comfortable playing any of the 3. And so, I think that's an underrated thing about this quarterback room is that your number 3 has been the top back of the last 2 years and is a guy that Pat Shurmur trusts. And so they're really 3 deep at quarterback, even though it is a top 2 right now.
Out at Big 12 Media Days, Coach Prime said there's really no benefit in us naming a starting quarterback. And based on what Pat Shurmur said today, I kind of got that feeling from him as well. He talked about, instead of it being a quarterback competition, which it is, he talked about it being quarterback development. And it would not shock me if both quarterbacks see action, in the game with both guys healthy this year. But I don't anticipate a big announcement. Do you?
No, I don't. I would not be shocked if we find out August 29th when you come out there, we're watching warm-ups like, oh, okay, Caden Salter's running with the ones. And Pat Shurmur said today about playing the best players. He goes, look, either one of those 2 guys could be our best player at that position. So, he kind of marveled at him being 17 years old, Juju being 17 years old, but there's clearly a lot of talent there, and he likes what he's got at quarterback. It's very different. Everybody's reiterated that this is going to be different because last year was clearly they struggled up front and they had 4 talented wideouts and a really good quarterback. That's what you were going to do. This is going to be different because they feel like they're better balanced. They've got more talent across the board on offense.
And that's something we've seen early during camp, that they've got a lot of mojo going with that ground game. And going back to Julian Lewis, as a bee is hovering around my head here, that's like a fake bee, I think. That's like a...
I don't know what that is.
Julian Lewis had an amazing deep throw to Omari Miller in practice on Thursday. It's really going for me. So the elements are not kind to me on these videos, Brian.
No, they're not. But the elements have been kind to Julian Lewis because he's looked good. And you're right, that the running game has looked good. I think that when I've watched Well-Off and Reach People and things like that, I know it's early days of practice. I know they're not totally hitting right now. Dallin Hayden looks really good running the football right now. I think Micah Welch has looked good. I think that there's got to be some energy, and we haven't talked to these guys yet, but I imagine there's got to be some energy in that running back room when you keep hearing your coaches say, we are going to run the football. Yeah. I mean, that's got to energize you. It's not leaving you alone. It's got to be energizing for guys like that. And frankly, a guy like Dallin Hayden didn't get a whole lot of opportunity last year before he has a bad ankle sprain, was never really the same. I don't think that Colorado has really seen the real Dallin Hayden yet. And so, I think he's looked good. So I think that's a fun element to the offense to monitor and see how that's going to develop.
I get a Colorado fan questioning this offense and wanting to see Pat Shurmur really prove it. He talked again today about, hey, we had 4 NFL receivers last year, and our offensive line was struggling, so that's why our offense looked the way it did. It got us to 9 wins. And then he followed that up and said, if we want to do better than 9 wins, we got to do more offensively. And so that's where the balance is going to come in. DeKalen Taylor was mentioned by Drelon Miller as well as a guy that stood out early on during camp. So you don't have a ton of depth at that position if guys start getting banged up. But I like the 4 scholarship backs that they do have on the roster.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I think they're all very different. And, I've said it before, but I really liked Micah Welch coming out of high school. I loved his film. I think he's got a lot of potential. He didn't have a fantastic year last year, but he was a true freshman, and I think it's it's a bad thing to give up on a guy that's a true freshman. They're going to develop. He's got a full year of college under his belt. I expect him to be better. I expected Dallin Hayden, if he's healthy, to be better. DeKalen Taylor, he's got some jump in him, he looks pretty solid. And Simeon Price, we'll see. I mean, he's an experienced guy that hasn't rushed for a lot of yards in college, but if that's your third or fourth option, that's a pretty good third or fourth option.
Omarion Miller's been balling. Drelon Miller, a nice start to camp. Miller mentions that he's been impressed with Hakeem Williams and Sincere Brown and how quickly they've learned the playbook. So you've got such a deep rotation there. That's one of the things.
Williams has made a lot of plays on film too.
Yeah. So that's one of those things nationally. There's this perception that you can't lose 4 guys to the NFL and be good at that position the next year, but they're going to be good at that position this year.
Yes, they are. And I mentioned Joseph Williams, Isaiah Harge, Terrell Timmons is a senior that has kind of been chomping at the bit, waiting for his turn. There's a lot of talent there. I think this might be a deeper group than it was last year. A guy that's not going to get talked a lot about, but Jack Hestera was here a couple years ago as a walk-on, went Charlotte and then Utah State, caught a lot of passes. He's going to be that sneaky guy I think is going to make some plays for this team too. So that group is pretty talented and deep.
And Cam Michael could have gone anywhere in the country, and you bring in Quentin Gibson and Quinellix Farrakhan that look like they could potentially be guys that could get out there and make some plays this year. So,
and by the way, Quentin Gibson was only the Max Preps National Player of the Year last year.
Yeah, exactly. On the offensive line, we got a chance to talk to Zy Crisler, big personality from Mississippi. He's developed a really strong relationship with Jordan Seaton this offseason, and they really kind of push each other, it sounds like.
Yeah, a couple of big guys that are learning from each other. And he mentioned how impressed he is with Jordan Seaton, just being a young guy but playing like an older guy. And Zy Crisler comes in. He's played a lot of football at Illinois, and he was, all Big Ten honorable mention a couple of years. And And look, he was part of an Illinois program that did what Colorado's been trying to do, right? And develop as a program. They were not very good when he got there, but they win 10 games last year, and so he's been a part of that. He's going to be a huge asset to this team. I think that might be one of the more underrated moves that Colorado's made, is getting guys like Zy Crisler and maybe even Xavier Hill as well.
There are a lot of first off the bus type guys on that offensive line, and Zy had to smile when he was asked about what it's like lining up with Larry Johnson on that offensive line, and he said, it's about 600 pounds of mass that's moving these guys, and it's a lot of fun. And so they have upgraded that offensive line as well. So another reason for optimism with this group. And again, it goes back to this is a group, despite losing all the talent they did, Pat Shurmur needs to produce with this group.
Yeah, and look, day one of camp, Kareem Harden was named the player of the day in camp. There's 41 of 65 starts from last year on the offensive line back. Plus you got all these guys coming in. So the competition is going to be huge. And with that, yes, Pat Shurmur's got to do more with the offense, and this offense has got to do more than they did last year, be more versatile. I think they're going to run I don't know how you can not run the ball better with this offensive line. I think it's just that much better. I like this group. I don't know who's going to start yet. It's clear who's kind of running with the ones, but there's a lot of guys I like on this line.
All right, that was our breakdown of Colorado's offense here after their 4th preseason practice.